national demonstration assembling at Parnell Square at 1 o'clock, where trade unionists, student unions, pensioners groups, housing groups, anti-poverty activists and many more will be marching to the Dáil to demand urgent action to deal with the crushing impact of the cost of living crisis and the housing and homelessness crisis. Now, there are many, many reasons why people will be joining that demonstration, and indeed I would urge anybody affected or angry about the cost of living and housing crisis to join that demonstration. They'll be there because of homelessness, unaffordable rents, unaffordable childcare, mortgage interest hikes, grocery price hikes, and much more. But today I want to concentrate on one aspect of this cost of living crisis, and that are the shocking figures produced by the Commission on the Regulation of Utilities this week, which show that an incredible 11%, 256,000 of electricity customers are now in arrears, up 72,000 since January of this year. An equally incredible 168,000 gas customers are now in arrears, up 24,000 from the beginning of the year. 1 in 5 gas customers in arrears. The figures also show that disconnections have jumped dramatically since the lifting of the moratorium on disconnections. In electricity, there were only 15 people, although that's too many. In April, customers were cut off. By May, it had gone up to 132. By June, 145. Gas customers, 21 cut off in April, then it jumps to 132 and 145 in June. This is happening during the summer months, not the winter months that we are now facing into. Now, you may say in your response, well, some of the energy companies have started to reduce their prices, but the price reductions in gas and electricity are a drop in the ocean compared to what's happened. In the last 2 years, electricity prices have more than doubled, more than 100%, to approximately €2,000 a year people are paying. And according to the Household Energy Price Index, people in this country are paying 80% more than the EU average for energy prices, electricity and gas. More than €900 a year, more than the average across the rest of Europe. All of this is happening while we have seen a profits bonanza by the ESB and the gas companies, seeing their profits jump to absolutely staggering levels. So my question to you, Taoiseach, is this. Will you, first of all, immediately reintroduce the moratorium on disconnections as we head into the winter months? And secondly, will you introduce price caps on energy so that people have energy costs that are at least down to the level of the rest of Europe rather than double the rest of Europe as they currently are now?
Well, first of all, in relation to the Deputy's overall point in terms of the cost of living, the government have over the last 12 months responded swiftly, strongly to cushion the impact of prices on households, businesses and farmers, with supports of up to €12 billion over the last 12 months. A not inconsiderable sum of money by any yardstick. And the ESRI, the Economic Social Research Institute, found that the one-off measures that we announced as part of Budget 2023 insulated most households from rising energy prices last winter. But people are under pressure, I acknowledge that. The cost of living is a big issue for people on the ground. But our measures did, over the last year, support people, and particularly for people on fixed incomes, including pensioners, carers, and people living with a disability. I mean, there were 8 lump sum payments alone in 2023. The doubling of payment of the child benefit, the autumn double payment, the 400 lump sum payment of fuel allowance, the 500 lump sum payment to families receiving working family payment, the €500 lump sum payment to people in receipt of disability allowance, blind pension or invalidity, €200 lump sum payment to people in receipt of the living alone allowance, 500 lump sum payment to carers, and the Christmas bonus double payment of weekly. And I could go on in terms of the weekly social welfare pension rates going up €12, and much, much, much more in terms of interventions, the €200 energy credits over the winter months, 3 of those. So these were unprecedented interventions, rightly so, because we have an unprecedented energy crisis. mainly caused both the post-COVID supply and demand problem, but also the war in Ukraine, which we're well aware of. And we have further problems now in terms of the reduction in production by some of the big oil producers, which is causing a significant uprise now in terms of the cost of fuel. And so the government, in the context of the forthcoming budget, will be examining the cost of living issues. And essentially both a combination of the budget and the cost of living package will again endeavour and work to try and ease pressure on people, particularly in respect of the winter months and in respect of pressure that people are coming under in respect of increases. In terms of housing, and you mentioned housing, the bottom line is that 2022 has seen the highest level of delivery of new build social housing since 1975. Over 10,000 social homes delivered last year, and we're heading in an even higher amount this year. So it's I think 26,000 houses, social houses alone, have been provided since this government came to office, and that includes the period in COVID when construction was suspended on a number of occasions. So these are significant progress in respect of housing, but we have a long way to go, and we have more to do in that regard. And on the specifics, in terms of, we're not going to go to the Liz Truss way or the way of the British Conservative Party in terms of how it dealt with the price increase crisis last year. We saw what happened there, but we will work to alleviate pressures on the public and on people in need in respect of price increases.
1 minute.
Taoiseach, listing out your so-called achievements is going to come as cold comfort to the hundreds of thousands of people who are in arrears. If your measures were so effective, how do we have 256,000 electricity customers in arrears? How do we have 1 in 5 gas customers in arrears? And this is before we head into the winter months. It is a terrifying prospect that people face who are in that situation. How do you explain that electricity and gas prices here, if it's all about the war in Ukraine, are almost double what they are in the rest of Europe? Well, I'll explain it for you. ESB's profits jumped 30% at the beginning of this year to an incredible 676 million, 100% more than they made 2 years previously. And you can see a same picture for SSE, for Energia, and so on. All have seen their profits go through the roof. What are you going to do about the profiteering? And you didn't answer my question. Will you reintroduce immediately the moratorium on disconnections? And why can't you bring down unit energy prices to the same level as the rest of Europe?
Thank you, Deputy.
Well, first of all, in terms of the ESB, it's a state company, which you're a strong supporter of, I take. And if you had your way, you would have more state companies across the board. So what we do, but sure, not for profit across the board, no, but we use the dividend then to come back to enable us to do the measures to alleviate the pressure. In other words, we have taken measures in respect of the energy companies in terms of excess profits. As you know, we've taken those measures and we expect revenues to come some before the end of the year, the windfall tax, and also next year, which we will reallocate back into measures to reduce the pressure on the public. Now, in terms of we will be taking measures over the coming months to try and ease pressure on people in respect of energy price increases, and that will be manifest in the budget and the cost of living package, the specifics of which are to be announced by the Minister of Finance and the Minister for Public Expenditure. But the SRI were very clear, it's not me saying it, that we did cushion the most vulnerable and the 3 to 4 lowest deciles of income in the country. And that's independent, objective data and analysis.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Ag bugger I Ishkaji and Chuck the Michael Fitzmaurice.
Ireland, you to talk about full employment at the moment and